falling for nobody else but you. You caught my eye, and I've got a few.
I'm a working parent, and my days are crazy. There's just no time, especially for eating right.
The ultimate in true paleo nutrition with bone broth, turmeric root, chaga mushroom, and 7 total primal superfoods.
If you cut calories, you do not have a dramatic effect on the fat cell.
And that's where you can really gain weight.
Your brain lights up with sugar just like it does with cocaine or heroin.
So I chose Atkins as a nutritious and easy way to eat and lose weight.
Watch what you eat 2 days a week and eat what you want the rest.
You cut carbs and sugar.
So I've been wanting to make this video for a while. I've actually put it off for a long time. I've put off all of YouTube and all that stuff for a while. So I'm just going to get on with it and just decided to do it. Which is why I'm doing this right now at nearly midnight on my very own casting couch, sat here in my pyjamas. So back to the subject of the video. These days it seems that everyone's got a different idea on how to lose weight. Wherever you look, you'll hear about new diet plans, certain foods we need to avoid. Just to give a few examples, here's some popular ones that you hear these days. So we're often told that we need to avoid carbs, and carbs are what make you fat. Not too long ago, it was fat that was demonized as the culprit for this. Sometimes sugar's the one that gets the blame. It's okay, you can eat carbs as long as it's not sugar. Some people will tell you that meat is the cause of the blame. Thanks very much, what the health. And some people will say you just need to eat clean, whatever that means. And don't forget detox. That's got to be the worst out of all the lot. And with all these different reasons comes different diet plans, all promising to be the solution to our weight loss problems. And while following any one of these diets can lead to weight loss, the real reason weight loss occurred will always be the same. A lot of people aren't going to like to hear this, but there's no magical food that you need to avoid or you have to eat in order to lose weight. The one thing that has time and time again shown to cause meaningful weight loss is a calorie deficit. Calories in versus calories out. Energy balance. Now, before I get into the title of this video, I'm just going to run through a couple of the popular diets that you hear about these days. Before I do that though, I think I'm going to get off this couch, because otherwise I might have to show the cameraman how much I really want to be in this movie. Okay, so we are in the kitchen and away from the casting couch for now. I might go back there if I really need the money at some point, maybe later. Anyways, I thought this would be a good place to go for the first topic. The first diet I want to go over, which is the keto diet. Just get that straightened up. That'll do. Okay, so the keto diet, essentially it's very low carb, like under 50 grams, maybe even under 30 grams, as low as possible really, with moderate protein and high fat. I believe it was originally created to help patients suffering with epilepsy and help control their seizures. And a big belief with today's keto crowd is that by cutting out the carbs, you're going to lose weight, or more accurately, fat. Now this diet can work, and here's how. I'll throw up some information on this side. If you go from eating, say, 250 grams of carbs a day down to 50 grams, that's a reduction of 200 grams of carbs, or 800 calories. Now, obviously by following this diet, you're probably going to increase protein and fat slightly as well, so you're going to increase calories in that area. But if the extra calories you eat from protein and fat is less than the 800 calories that you're losing by cutting out carbs, you will have created a calorie deficit. Another diet that's similar to keto is the low carb diet, or the Atkins diet. Essentially they're the same thing, except I think this one's just less aggressive with the reduction on carbs. Effectively they both revolve around reducing carbs. So with both of these diets, the idea goes that a high amount of carbs means a high amount of insulin, and since insulin triggers fat storage, you gain fat. And keto dieters will also tell you that the opposite holds true as well. Low carb, low levels of insulin, reduced triggering of fat storage, lose weight. So without going into too much, yes, insulin triggers fat storage. However, carbs aren't the only thing that triggers insulin. Protein can do it just as well in some cases. Here's the thing though, when you eat, insulin levels will rise and then return to a baseline when you're fasting. So throughout the day, your body is constantly going through phases of storing fat and releasing fat. And it is the difference between these two amounts that decides whether you gain or lose fat over time. And your body can only store fat if it receives excess energy in the form of, you guessed it, calories, whether it comes from carbs, protein, or fat. Now in some cases, like very overweight people, people who are sedentary in their lifestyle, or people who have high resistance to insulin, reducing carbs may be a good route to go down. But for the average person who lives a healthy, active lifestyle, there really isn't any need to go to a keto diet in order to lose weight. And also, who wants to miss out on carbs? Literally, some of the best foods are carbs. In fact, I'm going to go through my cupboard right now and just pick out all the foods that are carbs, just to show you that point. Right, so we got pancakes, make your own ice cream, pasta, noodles, admittedly they're protein ones, but still got carbs, fucking paninis, shredded wheat, or Aldi's cheap version, still just as good, sour apple loops, bananas, and these. I had to put my name on these because when I was at my parents', my dad kept on stealing them. Well, he just kept on stealing everything that was mine. Yeah, Farley's rusks. And before anyone questions me on whether I should be having these because they're designed for babies, it actually says all ages 4 to 6 months onwards. So I'm pretty sure I count as the onward part of that sentence. Another thing to bear in mind when following a low-carb diet is that a lot of people will swear by its magical fat loss benefits because they lost 10 pounds in the first week or two of trying it. The thing is though, they didn't lose 10 pounds of fat. You see, when you reduce carbohydrate intake, you also reduce one of your body's main sources of its glycogen stores. Now, since each gram of glycogen that you hold also comes with about 3 grams of water, when you reduce glycogen stores through low carb, you're also going to reduce water weight very quickly as well. So by following a keto diet, reducing carbs, you're going to reduce glycogen stores, reduce water weight. You can see some rapid weight loss, especially in the beginning, but it's not necessarily going to be from fat. Okay, moving on to the next diet, intermittent fasting. While technically not a diet, more of a dieting strategy or tool, it's still good to talk about. So effectively, it involves shortening your eating window. By reducing the amount of time throughout the day where you eat your meals, it can make eating in a calorie deficit very easy. I often use this strategy, especially because it means I get to enjoy large, satisfying meals at the end of the day when most people tend to get their cravings. Again though, this only works if you're actually in a calorie deficit. It's still possible to intermittent fast and overeat, leading to no weight loss and possibly even weight gain. Next up is low fat. Similar to how low carb diets work, in that you're reducing a certain macronutrient, you're going to end up reducing the amount of calories you consume as well. The reason this works very well is because fat is very calorie dense. A gram of fat has 9 calories compared to carbs and protein where a gram has only 4 calories. Okay, vegan and vegetarian. The way that these diets help cause a calorie deficit is simple. Typically many meat products contain a high amount of fat and therefore a very high amount of calories. Foods like beef, sausage, bacon, cheese, eggs are good examples of this. By removing these foods from their diets, vegans and vegetarians will likely eat less calories overall. Also, eating a lot of fruit and vegetables, foods that are very filling, high in fibre, will likely make you feel fuller and make sticking to a calorie deficit a lot easier. Okay, lastly, paleo. I don't know too much about this, but from what I understand, it's just eating minimally processed food, so the kind of food that our ancestors might have eaten. I don't know how true that is. I imagine their diet was vastly different than anything we have around today. So just how vegan and vegetarian diets help you remove very high calorie, unfilling foods, paleo works in a similar way. While not inherently a cause of weight gain, foods like junk, processed foods, snacks don't tend to be very filling, and these foods can often lead to overeating. So by following a paleo diet, you'll be removing a lot of these foods that don't fill you up, replacing it with foods that do, which again makes sticking to a calorie deficit much easier. So very often when people follow one of these, for lack of a better word, restrictive diets, the last thing they want to hear is that it's actually the calories that determine their weight loss. The thing I want to make clear is that I'm not attacking any of these diets. If you can follow them and it's something sustainable, you still enjoy it, and it helps you create a calorie deficit, fair play to you, you should stick with it and keep it up. What I don't agree with, however, is when followers of these diets act like members of a cult. And this is when people start throwing around bullshit about how their diet is the one true diet and start making outlandish claims of why it works. So, after all this, why do some people think that calories in versus calories out isn't true? And why does it not seem to work for some people? And we're back on the casting couch, because I needed the money, and steroids are quite expensive. Okay, so calories in versus calories out. Move more, eat less. While that is true, it's a bit of an oversimplification, and it does get a bit more complicated than that. And I'll go into that in a second. But here are some of the reasons why people think calories in versus calories out doesn't work. Number 1, unrealistic time frames. Today, there are so many programs, diets, pills, powders that all promise unrealistic results in unrealistic time frames. Lots of people will actually start a diet that legitimately puts them into a calorie deficit, but because they've been lied to and told they're going to lose 20 pounds in a month, when that doesn't happen, the first thing they think is that the diet's not working. Long story short, they lose motivation and quit, and this is when people start jumping from diet to diet, never actually seeing any results because they never stick with anything long enough because they've been lied to from the beginning. Number 2, not accounting for fluctuations. This one's pretty interesting because in this case the individual could be losing weight successfully, but because of the way they're tracking, it seems like they're not. Your body weight can have some pretty drastic fluctuations on a weekly basis and even on a daily basis. This can be due to changes in water weight, food you've eaten, or even whether or not you've gone to the bathroom at that time. For this reason, it's not the best idea to weigh yourself once a week or once every 2 weeks, and instead you should opt for weighing yourself every day and then taking an average. Let me explain why. Here's an example of someone who weighs themselves once a week. Now, as you can see, it doesn't look like they're actually losing weight. In fact, it looks like their weight's staying the same. But what they haven't done is taken into account fluctuations. When we look at the average, it shows that they are actually losing weight successfully. And the opposite can actually take place as well. Let's say someone weighs themselves once every 2 weeks and they think they're actually losing weight, but it turns out they just happen to have a really low weigh-in. Maybe they're not holding much water that day, and maybe they were holding a lot of water in the first weigh-in. Here's an example of my recent cut. Now, as you can see, there were a lot of fluctuations on a day-to-day basis, but by looking at the actual trajectory, I was losing weight. And if you looked at the averages as well for each week, that showed me that I was losing weight. But if I'd just been weighing myself once a week on a certain day, it would have been a lot harder to predict if I was actually losing weight. Okay, so the third reason is that sometimes people lose weight without counting calories. Here's the truth, right? You don't need to count calories in order to lose weight. But just because you don't count calories, it doesn't mean that your body isn't counting as well. In a lot of cases, some people will have tried diet after diet with no success, and then eventually they stumble across a particular diet. Let's say that this diet involves limiting the amount of sugar you eat, or cutting it out entirely. Now, since sugar usually isn't very filling, and therefore is very easy to overeat on, by removing it from their diet, this person is probably going to end up eating less calories than they were before. They end up creating a calorie deficit, and what's more, they're able to stick to this diet and actually maintain it long enough to see results. So in this person's mind, they won't be thinking, wow, I put myself into a calorie deficit, and thanks to the first law of thermodynamics, I lost weight. Thanks, physics. No, in this person's mind, they'll be thinking, I wasn't able to lose weight until I cut out sugar. To them, it was cutting out sugar that caused them to lose the weight, because that was the active choice they made. When in actual fact, it was because reducing the sugar caused them to reduce calories, which caused them to lose weight. And there are even studies showing that when you equate protein and calories, there's no difference in fat loss between a diet that's high in sugar and a diet that's low in sugar. Number 4, underestimating calories in. A great quote I once heard is that humans are not rational creatures, but they are rationalizing creatures. Something along those lines. Basically means we love to justify things in order to suit our bias. And unfortunately, this applies to diets as well. And it's actually been shown that people underestimate the amount of food they eat up to 50% sometimes. And this can happen in numerous ways. Eating out is a big problem. A lot of restaurants don't publish nutrition data. So I can guarantee you that if you order a carbonara from a restaurant, it's going to have a hell of a lot more calories than the one you might make at home. A restaurant's job isn't to provide you with X amount of calories in order for you to hit your diet. It's their job to make the food as delicious and palatable as possible so that you want to come back for more. Another way people mess up is by not tracking all their food properly. So this is things like oils, spreads, sauces. They all have calories and they all add up. Have you ever actually tried to measure out the recommended serving of peanut butter? I think it's like a tablespoon. They'll say that a tablespoon is 20 grams or something. And yeah, it will be if you don't heap it, but let's be honest, whenever you scoop out peanut butter, it's going to come out in a heap. Forgetting about those extra calories from things like that can actually ruin a calorie deficit. Because of this, if you're very new to dieting, I highly advocate spending time tracking everything you eat, at least for a couple of weeks. Get yourself a set of digital scales and weigh out everything. Then record it in an app like MyFitnessPal. At first, it may seem like a hassle, but I promise you, after a while, it will seem like second nature. And you don't have to do it forever, it's just to give you an idea of the amount of food you're actually eating, and to help you see if you're actually eating as many calories as you think you are. Number 5, overestimating calories out. Just like how people underestimate the amount of calories they eat, people often overestimate the amount of calories they burn. Let's look at the equation again. calories in versus calories out. A lot of people say, just eat less, move more. It's simple. But as I said earlier, that's making it too simple. Calories in is the simple part. Yes, there's going to be some label inaccuracy, but for the most part, you can get that part right. You can accurately track how many calories you eat. Calories out is more complicated. It's not just made up of moving more. So it's actually made up of your basal metabolic rate, which is the amount of calories you burn just to stay alive, the thermic effect of food, which is the amount of energy it costs to actually break down the food you eat, and non-exercise activity thermogenesis, or NEAT. And what this is just little day-to-day movements not related to exercise. All of that uses up calories, and that actually can be quite a range between different people. And the last part that makes up is exercise. And as you can see, BMR is the largest part of this. Now, there are calculators online that can estimate your total energy expenditure, but they're only really good as a starting point. So just because an online calculator says you burn a certain amount of calories, or that's what your Fitbit tells you, it doesn't make it so. The best way is to find a certain amount from one of these calculators, eat a certain amount of food related to that, and then track your progress and see if it's accurate. Then you make adjustments if needed. So when people want to increase their calories out, what they usually try and do is a ton of cardio in order to increase the amount of calories they're burning. And while this will increase the amount of calories they burn, as you can see, exercise is only a very small part of calories out. That and the fact that excessive cardio has been shown to break down muscle just makes it a really ineffective way to try and lose weight. So if you really want to increase your calories out, the best way to go about it is to actually increase the BMR, which leads me to point number 6 of why some people think calories in versus calories out doesn't work. An adapted metabolism. So after all this, why do some people who should be burning 2,000 calories a day fail to lose weight when they're eating something ridiculous like 800 calories a day? While I'm not an expert at this, I will try and give a brief overview to explain kind of what it is. So essentially, your body is very good at keeping you alive. Over thousands of years of evolution, we've gotten pretty good at it. So 10, 20, 30,000 years ago, when there was a food shortage, if your body didn't adapt and slow its metabolism down, you probably didn't live long enough to pass on your genes. So over millennia, we've evolved to have metabolisms that are going to adapt to the amount of energy we give them. Think of it like a phone on battery saver mode. When you're dieting down, your body doesn't know that you're trying to get lean or get shredded or just want to look good for the beach. Your body thinks that you're dying very slowly. So if you spent years following crash diets and severely low calories, your body has probably adapted to deal with that because it thinks that's the norm. It thinks you're going through large periods of food shortages and it's putting itself into this lower calorie burning state in order to keep you alive. So of course you're not going to lose weight if you're only eating 1,000 calories, if that's what your body's metabolism has lowered itself down to match. Your body is going to fight you and actually try to hold on to the weight. So in this case, I think the best thing to do is to actually spend time reverse dieting. If you've spent a year or two following these ridiculously low calorie diets and you've caused your metabolism to adapt in that way, you're probably going to have to spend a year or two actually building your metabolism back up. Forget about fat loss. You need to spend time building up your metabolism again. Some good ways to start doing this are, if you're not already, start lifting weights 3 to 5 times a week, heavy resistance training, the aim of which is actually to build some muscle. By building muscle, your body is going to actually burn more calories, and you're actually going to increase your BMR just by having more muscle. Alongside this, you're going to want to increase your protein. 0.8 to 1 gram per pound of body weight is adequate. And then, as I said earlier, reverse dieting. Start increasing calories, gradually adding them in on a weekly basis. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that video. It's pretty late now. It's nearly 1 o'clock, so that's been about an hour of filming. It's probably not going to be an hour on this thing. There's going to be a lot of cutscenes. But yeah, honestly, I hope you really enjoyed this video. Like I said, I've been wanting to make this for a while. It's been something that's really been in the back of my mind about all these different diets and, people saying that calories in versus calories out doesn't work. And I don't want to give it a simple thing and say it's all about the calories, but I mean, it more or less is. Okay, so that's the main thing to focus on. 80-90% of your results are going to come from your energy balance and obviously a good training program as well. The other 10-20%, yeah, you could argue that's going to be from your food choices. So yeah, whether you get a lot of your carbs from simple carbs or complex carbs. But the biggest reason that complex carbs and things like that will help is not because they have some magical fat burning properties or that reducing sugar causes you to rapidly burn fat. No, it's more the fact that by cutting out some of these foods and putting in more healthy, nutritious foods, you're going to feel better. You're going to just have slightly more better energy levels. You're going to be healthier. You're less likely to get sick as well. All those things added up, that can make sticking to your diet easier, make you have better sessions in the gym, which that is going to. So it's more of an indirect effect that these certain foods will have on your training. But like I said, the big thing is always going to be the calories and how those calories break down into macronutrients. So if you like what you've seen, please give this video a like. Do hit the subscribe button because I'm definitely going to be more consistent with this now. No need to wait a couple of months for a video. I'm going to do another one next week. I've said that now, so I've got to stick to that. All my social media here below and in the description as well, so follow me on there as well, and I will see you in the next one.